My hustle culture friend just died of a heart attack at age 32.
Sorry for the wall of text, but I really need to get this off my chest. I met this guy at uni, and since graduating he had been living the life. He got up at 5 a.m. to work out and do all life's admin, then worked 08:30 19 to 30 every day in finance for £150k/year, and then would spend his evenings working on his side hustle business. On weekends he'd do voluntary management work for a charity. He had financial independence, and he was going to retire early. The world was his oyster and he would travel around to every country with a laptop. I'd never left Europe and got very envious of this. But the sad reality is, he's been a zombie for over a decade now. He never got more than 5 hours sleep. He never ate healthy food. He didn't have a romantic relationship and never found time for friends.
And he was always cutting costs to save for retirement. He'd have cheaper long flights with many changes and dump his bag at a hostel before getting to work on zero sleep. He never got to explore the places he was in. It was always just another office. I'd only see him once every 3 months or so, even when he was living in his house 20 minutes walk away from me. And whenever I saw him, he'd be too exhausted to do any activities. We'd just go to the pub while he switched off after an hour. His biggest regret was taking up smoking, which he did to network with managers on smoke breaks at a previous job, and then found impossible to quit. My last conversation with him was about work. I said that I get an extra 5 days annual leave because I've worked here 5 years now.
He said it's not worth it. I'd be better off switching jobs to get a pay rise and then take unpaid time off to return to my previous salary. I'm going to take those 5 days to spend with my family and think about any good times I had with my old friend. I found out about his death when the hospital called me. He kept my phone number in his wallet as an emergency contact. I didn't know this until I got that call. I didn't realize I was the closest person he had in this world. To me, he felt like a distant friend who I only got to hang out with a few times a year. Dang man, I have friend who works for my old boss still. Dude has him working crazy hours. Since he builds mega mansion there has been times where they would warn until 34 a.m. and be up by 7. Then last year at that same workplace, one coworker got a heart attack, ended up quitting months later. My friend was so exhausted he ended up in the hospital. I told my friend working for that guy for 120k is not worth it and he's talented enough to find another job. I quit the day my boss made me work late on son's birthday. Seeing videos of my family singing happy birthday and me not being there was it.
My condolences to you. Thank you for sharing your friend's story.
I'm really sorry for your loss. Crying, it's a good reminder to us all that living to work and saving all your money to hopefully enjoy in your last few years on earth is such a waste. Enjoy life while you have it. Getting to retirement age is not a guarantee. One day a fisherman was lying on a beautiful beach, with his fishing pole propped up in the sand and his solitary line cast out into the sparkling blue surf. He was enjoying the warmth of the afternoon sun and the prospect of catching a fish. About that time, a businessman came walking down the beach, trying to relieve some of the stress of his workday. He noticed the fisherman sitting on the beach and decided to find out why this fisherman was fishing instead of working harder to make a living for himself and his family. "You aren't going to catch many fish that way," said the businessman to the fisherman. "You should be working rather than lying on the beach." Quote. The fisherman looked up at the businessman, smiled and replied, "And what will my reward be?" Quote. "Well, you can get bigger nets and catch more fish," was the businessman's answer. "And then what will my reward be?" asked the fisherman, still smiling. The businessman replied, "You will make money and you'll be able to buy a boat, which will then result in larger catches of fish." Quote. "And then what will my reward be?" asked the fisherman again. The businessman was beginning to get a little irritated with the fisherman's questions. "You can buy a bigger boat and hire some people to work for you," he said. "And then what will my reward be?" repeated the fisherman. The businessman was getting angry. Don't you understand? You can build up a fleet of fishing boats, sail all over the world, and let all your employees catch fish for you. Quote. Once again the fisherman asked, and then what will my reward be? Quote. The businessman was red with rage and shouted at the fisherman, don't you understand that you can become so rich that you will never have to work for your living again? You can spend all the rest of your days sitting on this beach, looking at the sunset. You won't have a care in the world. Quote. The fisherman, still smiling, looked up and said, and what do you think I'm doing right now? Quote. https thestorytellers.com/thebusinessmanandthefisherman/
I'm sorry for the loss, your friend. May his spirit rest in peace and his memory be a blessing.
Sorry for the loss. Hustle culture really is toxic. Sounds like an ex-coworker of mine. Started working with the company at age 14 until 65, died at 66 2 weeks after he bought himself a 800k RV to travel Europe with his wife. He worked every workday 910 hours upside down face. There is no amount of money that will replace the sands of time. Young people need to remember that the most important parts of your life are ones you were born with. There is no house fancy enough to be worth a messed up spine, and there is no car fast enough that it's worth sacrificing your knee cartilage. The richest man on earth would give up everything to be young again. Always put yourself first. This body is your vessel. It defines every waking moment you spend in this world. It is better to age like fine wine than to grind yourself to dust, I promise you. Sorry for your loss. This hits hard and is really a good reminder to value your life, but if that's the life you choose, then I hope we was happy and enjoyed everything he had. This is gonna be 100% the case with everyone who pursues this. Before there was a name for this, I was doing it. I would put in over 70 hours per week every week for 15 plus years. The end result? I've almost died numerous times at the age of 33. Body doesn't have the drive anymore. And the monetary gain? Nothing. It all went to medical bills. So sorry for your loss. Your story helped me today to remember that workaholism can be progressive and fatal. I forget easily. I've stopped my heart once from this addiction. I was seriously considering med school at one time. But then I realized I would have no life. So I took decent paying jobs that left me with time and money to enjoy myself. I only worked 4 days a week and enjoyed my time off. My bosses found out early that I don't do overtime. Man, sleep is so important for your health. Condolences. Stress is a killer, and as I've gotten older I've realized that sleep is so important for the body and mind. I'm so very sorry for your loss. Took up smoking to network. I'm sorry for your loss and obviously for him. But wow, he really sold his health for dollars. Smoking for networking? That's just pathetic. Even though this is sad news, etc. I'm sorry for your loss. But I think I'm more sorry for your friend's loss. Life is amazing if you take a moment to see it at its worth. It's good for you to get off your chest. It's a lot to process and learn from. Be well, orange heart, orange heart. Everyone working for Elon should take note. Wow, that was a sad read. Condolences, op pensive face. Paramedic here. I'm not advocating for hustle culture. Your friend's life sounds terrible. But was unlikely that overwork or stress killed him. Here's why. First, it's important to understand what a heart attack is. In the movies, it's portrayed as a person suddenly gripping their chest, then dropping dead. It's a very common phrase in the vernacular. but it has no medical meaning. The presentation in the movies does sometimes happen, but it can have many different causes. Most commonly what people mean when they say, "he died of a heart attack," is a myocardial infarction, or MI. This is when a blood clot or a chunk of plaque gets lodged in one or more of the arteries that supply blood to the heart, leading to pain and, if untreated, heart damage and eventually death. He was fine earlier, but then he went out to mow the lawn. The extra effort of mowing the lawn caused some plaque that had formed inside the arteries, due to high cholesterol or whatever, to rupture and break off, flowing in the circulation until it got stuck in their heart and dropped them. Very rare but not impossible in young people, because that plaque needs time to accumulate, and younger people are generally more active even if they don't eat well. Sometimes the heart muscle itself is fine, or fine enough, but there's some kind of problem with the electrical wiring that controls it. The heart is a complex and delicate machine, and in order to work correctly it needs all the parts to move in the right order and at the right time. Like any machine, it can have a wide variety of problems. While many of these problems are fixable and compatible with life, some are not. If the heart for some reason goes into an electrical rhythm that isn't compatible with a pulse, there's a very short window in which that person's life can be saved. This gets more common as people get older and life takes its toll. But there are some congenital, genetic conditions that can cause it to happen to young and otherwise healthy people. If that's what happened here, then your buddy was on borrowed time regardless of his employment, life choices. The third one that can look like a heart attack is only tangentially related to the heart. It's called pulmonary embolism. A clot forms, either appropriately, such as after surgery, or inappropriately, and before it can be broken down, becomes dislodged. It circulates through the body until it arrives in the lungs. This is generally not lethal depending on the size of the clot and the exact place it gets stuck. But a sufficiently large clot in a critical juncture can entirely stop the flow of oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart and back out to the body. In these cases, the person will experience a sudden onset of horrible chest pain and become very short of breath, and die in a few minutes. Again, more common with older people, but can happen to pretty much anyone at any time. Smoking is a huge risk factor for it. For a young guy who goes to the gym, my money's on this one. And the cigarettes are what did it. Not working 80-hour weeks and sleep deprivation.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.